Chevre, how are you? How are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und fehle, begashmis, und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. We're in the first Shabbos of the 3 weeks. Instead of Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Pinchas, today is Chai Tammuz, and we're learning Perek Shishi of Pirkei Avos. As usual, the question is, what's the connection between all these things? Before I continue further, I just want to say that the Rebbe spoke many times how the Shabbosim of the 3 weeks, you have to be happier than all the other Shabbosos of the entire year, because you have to be so happy that no one should even have a doubt whether maybe you're not happy enough due to the 3 weeks. That's why in these Shabbosim you have to be especially happy. So I'm saying that at the outset, Tachlis, bottom line, you don't have to hear the whole shir today. Just be happy. This Shabbos, more than ever before, if you haven't said L'chaim on every single Shabbos, this Shabbos, by the Shabbos table, make a special L'chaim, because it's the Shabbos in the 3 weeks, and we're meant to be happy on Shabbos. And I'm not going to get into the deep, profound explanation of the Rebbe about what these Shabboses mean. Maybe we'll leave this for the next Shabboses. In any case, as usual, we'll start with a prayer. You should love Hashem with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Rashi says, even if one has to give up his life for Hashem. So there's a concept called Mesiras Nefesh. We've probably spoken about this many times, and it's very, very important. And today, actually, I'm not going to address that question. But we're living in an age where everything has become, problematic or unclear, in an age of confusion. We know that Jewish martyrdom, Mesiras Nefesh, was always a Jewish concept. That's the history of Judaism from the beginning of Avraham Avinu with the Akedah. Every single tzaddik went through Mesiras Nefesh. Every single hero of the Jewish nation is a hero of Mesiras Nefesh. And the true best definition for the word is selflessness, as we'll soon talk about. Now, when we talk about Pinchas, this week's parsha is Pinchas. Pinchas is a symbol of Mesiras Nefesh. All out. That's it. We're ready to do whatever it takes. That's the idea. Now, we'll start with the Pasuk, where it says that the reward that Pinchas got for his act of kanois, of zealousness, Rashi says, in Pasuk Yud Gimmel, V'hoisa loy lazaroi achrav bris kuhunas olam. It shall be for him and his offspring after him a covenant of eternal priesthood. And Rashi says that bris kuhunas olam, she'af al pi shekvar nitna kuhuna lazaroi shel Aaron, even though it was already given away, priesthood, to the children of Aaron, it meant to be to Aaron and all of his children and children's children. Before this whole transferring of kahuna to Aaron and all of his children, and he wasn't Nimshach, so loy bo l'chla kahuna ad kan. He didn't come to kahuna until the Eibishter gave him a special reward. So the question is, now, as a side point, much discussion is about how Pinchas is a man of peace. This has to be said again today in our day and age. We have to forewarn to make sure no one should make any mistake. Pinchas is the man of peace, and therefore, and the pasuk says it over here, and therefore he's rewarded with kahuna. Kahuna represents love. Levarech Esam Yisrael Avo. Kohanim represent, according to Kabbalah, Chesed. And this is the whole point. This was the ultimate affirmation from Hashem to show that Pinchas acted purely out of love. He saw a Magefa, he saw a plague and thousands were dying, and he saw the act of Zimri, having relations, etc. And he was disturbed by it, totally crushed, and therefore to save his brothers, therefore he did what he did. Okay, there's a lot to talk about, and there's a famous expression that somebody once said, I'm a lover, not a fighter. but I'll fight for what I love. And this is the idea in Yiddishkeit. Every idea and concept of a Pinchas means that in the end, of course, he knew that this was Hashem's will. Moshe Rabbeinu had remembered that this was the halacha. He didn't remember this halacha that if a person, halacha vein meiden came, this in itself, that if you ask, they will tell you not to do it. But someone who's overzealous, he could. So there's a lot of questions over here to get the exact categories of each of these situations. What does it mean, halacha vein meiden came? We're not discussing it over here today. My point is that when we speak about kanois, obviously it's only purely an expression of Hashem's will, but it's a deeper level of connecting to Hashem's will, and it's because you have a role as an individual. That means even though there's a Moshe Rabbeinu standing there, and he's not taking action, sometimes you're meant to take the initiative. I'm giving this a very big warning that I believe that in most cases you should still ask your mentor and see what happens. Don't take initiative in something which might be questionable on your own, even though it's not the story of Pinchas. But I think the lesson we take from Pinchas is the idea of take the initiative, but consult first, just to be careful. Anyways, that's practical. But let's get back. I'm going to say a Sikh of the Rebbe from Chelik Lamed Daled. Lamed Gimmel, sorry. Chelik Lamed Gimmel Pinchas. And it's a very unusual Sikha because some of the concepts are used with different language. And that is, so we have to understand over here, number one, we already explained how on one level Pinchas gets kahuna to prove that very point. That we never believe in violence for the purpose of violence. We never believe in kanois l'shem kanois. It's because Ra Ma'asav v'niska halacha, and that it came out of love. It was an act of love and kindness, etc. And that's why he's rewarded with that. He did an act of loving kindness. He's rewarded to become from the people koyanim that are filled and full of love. But the question is, what's the idea of breaking something which is like, imagine you're born an apple and then Hashem makes you an orange. L'chayra, being a kohen is not connected to deeds. It's a reality, it's a fact. And as in the story of Korach, when Korach wanted to change that the Levium should be the ones that are the main hanshos, and maybe he was considering that they should become the Kohanim, Moshe Rabbeinu said, Boiker v'yoida, and Rashi says over there that there are distinctions. Judaism believes in distinctions. Distinctions and individuality is a blessing for society. Each one remains with their distinct individuality, eccentricities, etc. And each one is respecting the other because they see how the other brings something to the table that they don't have. And each one has a special quality. And that's the way the Eibishter set it up. There's a system, there's a hierarchy. And it's not a problem because each one knows their place. The head knows that it needs the feet to be able to carry out its designs and its plans. And the feet know that without the head, he'd be draining a cup. He'd just be walking around and around, getting fast nowhere, as they say. So then the question is, if these distinctions were themselves made by Hashem, so what's the whole idea over here that we're saying that even though you weren't born a Kohen, now you become a Kohen? What does that mean? So that's the question that the Rebbe addresses in the Sikha. And he explains it based on a Gemara. There's a Gemara that says, Haroya Pinchas b'cholim, whoever sees Pinchas in a dream, Pella nasaloi, a wonder happens to him. I'm not going to continue the Gemara because I don't want to go into the lengthy details of the Sikha. If you want to get all the details, see there. I'm just going to speak one point and how it relates to us, which I forgot to mention. Last Shabbos was Yud Beis Tammuz, the Chag HaGeula of the Friedrich Rebbe. Sunday was Yud Gimmel Tammuz, also a day connected to the liberation of the Friedrich Rebbe. So today's talk shares also very much how Pinchas and the idea of Pinchas is related to the previous Rebbe and the concept of Mesiras Nefesh. So, Pella Nasaloi. And the Rebbe asked many questions in this Gemara. What does it mean, Harei Pinchas, Pella Nasaloi? Why does it say Pella? There's another Gemara that says that there were Nisim that happened to Pinchas. miracles, so it says miracle, and it's Lashon Rabbah, miracles, and over here it says Pele Nasali. So the Rebbe explains that there's really 3 levels of serving Hashem, and then 3 corresponding hanhaga, conduct, way, and resultant, consequential miracles, or how things are given to you, hashpah, from Hashem. So there's one way of serving Hashem, b'lashon teva. A person remains in his limitations. He serves Hashem according to his capabilities, but he doesn't go out of himself. If you want to look at this in a negative way, then it's just doing things out of rote, out of habit, not out of passion. If you want to look at it in a more positive way, he could still be full of passion. He could still be doing everything with excitement and enthusiasm, but it's still limited. It's not a level of nace. It's not that he's doing something unpredictable, and it's not that he's giving himself away. It's not Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh is a whole different thing. Regular service is like serving Hashem with your 10 koiches hanefesh, your chochma, your intellect, your moichin, your chochma bin das, and your midas and your emotions. But it's not Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh means you're giving away your whole life. That's a whole different level. It's surrendering completely. It's not so easy. You can't compare, like for example, civilians and soldiers. A civilian is a compliant citizen. He does everything right. He's a law-abiding citizen. No problem. But is he on the front lines? Is he putting life in harm's way? No way. It's 2 different things. There's a compliant citizen, which is very good and very nice and very admirable. But it's not the same thing as somebody who's in the line of fire. A fireman who jumps into the fire. Or a soldier in the front lines. That's Mesiras Nefesh. So there's Teva. So when a person serves the Eibishter in a level of Teva, a regular, Tuesday afternoon, regular service of Hashem, so then what he gets in return is also limited, a reward based upon your limitations. It says as a man, the way he serves Hashem, that's the way he is meted out, his reward. Then we have Nes, what's called a miracle. A miracle is Mesiras Nefesh. You transcended your limitations. You broke out of your borders. You took off the shackles of boundaries. You unleashed your inhibitions, and you're able to do something against your nature, beyond your just simple faculties. That's a miracle. And that's Mesiras Nefesh. When you give of yourself completely, like a fireman, like a policeman, like a soldier. But there is a level, a 3rd level, which is called Pele. And this Sikha, the Rebbe says Pele is higher than Nes. Sometimes it's the other way around. But based on the pasuk which says, Kimeitzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim, as Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, Arenu niflois. We're going to see niflois, wonders, Pele. And in that verse, it means greater than what was in Yetzias Mitzrayim, of course. It's going to make the miracles that were happening by Yetzias Mitzrayim as child's play. So what's this level of serving Hashem in the way of Pele? And the answer is, Pele means you're living in a constant state of Mesiras Nefesh. Not that you decided Monday because the situation warrants that you should go on Mesiras Nefesh, therefore you went on Mesiras Nefesh. But that you are 24/7, 365 days a year, in that mode of warrior alert. Everything, every single minute is wartime by you. Every single second, you're having awareness and a consciousness of all out. That's Pele. That's totally beyond. In other words, when we say the word Nes, we say there's Teva, but now we're going to make a Nes. So Nes and Teva go together. This is one thing, and this is the contrast. But then there's Pele, and the Rebbe brings from a Rashi where we say that Pele is something which is moved to Lagamri. It's something which is completely beyond. Not even. You can't even call it something which is higher than nature. It's just in a different dimension, a totally different dimension. Maybe you could say similar to what the Alter Rebbe explains in Shaykh V'Emunah. He says a very famous line. Similar, I'm just going to bring out as an example one way how to explain it. The Alter Rebbe says over here, whoever says that Hashem can't be understood because it's too deep of a concept to be understood, that's why we can't understand it. And if you just say we can't understand it, the Alter Rebbe says it's ka'imel eze chochma rama v'amuka she'ef shelamasha b'yadayim ne'oimek hamusik. He says, imagine somebody's going to come along and talk about a deep concept and say, wow, this concept is so deep that we can't touch it with our hands. Shekola shemei yitzhak lei. Whoever hears those words will laugh. To touch something with your hands means that it's in the realm of touch. But our logic is not in the realm of touch whatsoever. So not like this. We talk about something that we can touch. A regular object you can touch. But if you were talking about fire, we'll say fire is too hot, you can't touch it. So it's in the realm of touch, but it's too hot, so therefore it can't be touched. But if something's not in the realm of touch whatsoever, we can't say it's so deep we can't touch it. It's not in the realm of touch, it has nothing to do with touch. So too over here. There is the idea of a miracle, which is still related to Metzias. You are a Metzias, you are a private individual. You have an identity. Who are you? My name is Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, whoever you are. Berel, Shmerel. And most of the time you do an Avodah of Teva. Because that's the way it is. I don't have to always be standing in a mode of warrior alert. Then comes sometimes I'm going to go on Mesiras Nefesh. Why? Because like we say, extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. Desperate times call for desperate measures. But then there's a third level. Somebody who's always, the on button is on the button of Mesiras Nefesh, 24/7. Not because he's a Metzias that he decided that today I am going on Mesiras Nefesh. Why? Because I asked the Rav, I asked the Shaila, and they were told, and I was told on this thing I should go on Mesiras Nefesh. No. I am in Mesiras Nefesh mode 24/7. That's a whole different level. And that's the story of Pinchas that is Mesiras Nefesh in a way. In a way. I will leave some homework for you to look it up in the Mefarshim. What's the story in this case where Moshe Rabbeinu himself didn't do the act of Pinchas? But in a way, this is a Mesiras Nefesh, which means that it's higher than even the regular state that Moshe Rabbeinu is in. And that's why Pinchas is the one who had to come to it, because it's a whole different level of Mesiras Nefesh. Obviously, Moshe Rabbeinu has every single level; he's the highest tzaddik. But this point had to come through Pinchas because it shows on a unique story. And what's that unique story? That unique story is a pella. It's not just regular Mesiras Nefesh. And what's pella? Pella means it goes beyond even the regular norm of Torah, though it is a halacha, but it's a halacha vein moirin kain. We do not tell someone to do it, but the halacha also says kanoim poigim boy. A kanoi could take action. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean? So again, we have one person, one level of service called teva. So Hashem rewards you in such a way, limited. Then we have another situation where you do nes, you do a miracle. When you serve the Eibishter and you do a miracle, you do the miracle. You had Mesiras Nefesh, then the Eibishter gives you a reward, which is beyond limits, so to speak. But even in beyond limits, there's limits. In this case, it's not only stam a schar, a reward, that's in a way of a nes, it's a pella. What was the pella? The pella was, even though you were born an orange, the Eibishter made you an apple. And even though usually we say that the fact that you're a kohen or not has nothing to do with your service, in this case, what you did was so much of a different dimension altogether, pella, that the Eibishter made you a kohen, which is al derech the idea of a pella. It's incomparable, it's unparalleled. Today we like to say unprecedented. So this idea, Pinchas' Mesiras Nefesh was an unprecedented Mesiras Nefesh. And the Rebbe connects this with the Friedrich Rebbe of Yidbeis Tammuz, as the Rebbe says in many cases, that the Mesiras Nefesh of the Friedrich Rebbe was not technically according to, the interpretation of the law. Someone could have argued it's not Gilei Arayis, it's not Shvichas Dam, it's not Avodah Zarah. It's not technically those things where you must go on Mesiras Nefesh. And nevertheless, the Friedrich Rebbe was Mesiras Nefesh like Pinchas, because his way of serving Hashem was Pella. The Rebbe says in the Sikha here, Hikol Etzem Atzmusei was one being of Mesiras Nefesh. The Friedrich Rebbe is Mr. Mesiras Nefesh. His Mesiras Nefesh switch mode is 24/7, 365 days a year. And that's a Pella. And as we all know, I urge you to read the book. I forgot what it's called already. There's one called The Prince in Prison, but then there's another one. Maybe it's called The Defiant Struggle. I forgot already. Look it up. It's easy to find. The story of the Friedrich Rebbe's fight against Soviet Jewry. And the Rebbe always brings out the same lesson. I know we spoke about this last week, but I forgot exactly what I said last week. And the point was that it's a single man who single-handedly was running a network of teachers teaching children Aleph Beis. And the Friedrich Rebbe saw this as a war on Yiddishkeit. The communist regime of Stalin at that time had declared really a war on Yiddishkeit, to uproot it completely and make it forgotten. The Friedrich Rebbe saw this as a war on Yiddishkeit, and therefore we have to respond with Mesiras Nefesh. And that was the Mesiras Nefesh switch. And there's many, many stories. I don't know what I said before, what I didn't say before. And in other words, anything less than Mesiras Nefesh was just not an option. That is the only option. And that's the level of Pella. So, I just want to give one story, which my Mashpia of Melech Tzibul, I heard from him, and I'm sure I said it before, but I'll repeat it again, because it's so precious. And that's a story that he heard from his Mashpia, and that is when Socrates, who I think he drank from the hemlock and he died, and he was given a choice by the authorities. There were the three Greek philosophers, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And he was captured by the government at that time, and he was told that he has to denounce all his teachings or drink this, and he was given a poison and he chose to drink this. When he came Lamailo, he said he has to go into Gan Eden, he has to get heaven. And he said, why? Because Avram Avinu had not gewollt gehen auf Mesiras Nefesh. Avram Avinu only wanted to go on Mesiras Nefesh. But I actually went on Mesiras Nefesh. Bepoil. So he was told, no, there's a whole big difference between you and Avram Avinu. Du hast gebitten a taiva fa taiva. You exchanged lusts. You understood that intellect, because by him it was all about intellect, with Socrates. You understood that intellect is spirituality. To them, intellect was soul. And the soul is eternal, it's spiritual. So therefore, you traded the pleasures of the flesh for the pleasures of the spirit. So it's a worthy business deal. You traded in your Volkswagen for a Rolls Royce. It's a good deal. It's a bargain. You traded in your temporary, limited physical life on planet Earth for eternal life in heaven, in paradise. So that's not Mesiras Nefesh. You didn't give up anything. Mesiras Nefesh is selflessness. Aber bei Avram Avinu, a Yid nit will nit ken sich abreißen von alle Kurs. A Yid, he doesn't think twice, he doesn't make calculations, he doesn't think of the pros and the cons and weighs up one next to the other. It's just like an immediate reaction. Hashem! That chip inside of him, his neshama, just is loyal to Hashem. Nit a Yid will nit ken sich abreißen von alle Kurs. He chooses Hashem straight away, out of loyalty, out of dedication and devotion, as a child to a parent. Automatic, without thinking twice for a second, what is he giving up and what is he gaining, etc., etc. So Socrates said, Gebit na taiva taiva, so that's not called Mesiras Nefesh, and by Yid, it does Mesiras Nefesh. So I'm not going into the whole concept right now, because that's another 3-hour speech. So let's talk about Yud-Beis Tammuz. And the Friedrich Rebbe's work, he single-handedly took on a superpower, as the Rebbe said. And this documented fact, there was a certain Jew, he wanted to start an organization. in the late 50s, early 60s, to do something with Soviet Jewry. He was told to go to New York and speak to the Rebbe. There's a video how he speaks, and he said he went to New York, and I was told I should go to Lubavitch. And then he was told to go to Rabbi Chanukov, and Rabbi Chanukov gave him a list of 50. He says, this person himself says, he gave me a list of 40 to 50 names, confidential, across Russia. Could you imagine? In the late 50s and early 60s, and these are the remnants, the embers, all continuing from the previous Rebbe's work in the mid-20s. And it continued on. So this organization that did for Soviet Jewry was not possible to begin without the help of 40 to 50 agents, undercover secret agents of the Frierdiker Rebbe, of the Rebbe, doing work for Yiddishkeit. And from them, he was able to start an organization. I just heard 2 new stories this week. I'll say it very briefly. Rabbi Leibel Shapiro went to visit Russia. It started they were able to send through the organization called Ezer Zachem people that were able to go to Russia and visit from the mid 80s and the early 80s until the fall of the Soviet Union in 1990-91. So Rabbi Leibel Shapiro went there and he wrote a report to the Rebbe of his visit. And he wrote in the report, and I think he gave it in an Erev Shabbos, don't quote me on this point. He wrote in the report that one of the places he went to visit was Odessa, and he met 2 women, and he was so inspired by what they told him that he wrote it to the Rebbe. One woman had told him, he asked the couple, that he was talking to a couple, him and his wife went to Russia, Rabbi Shapiro and his wife went, and they visited people, and he asked somebody, so what happens with the mikveh? What do you use for the mikveh? So she said, the Black Sea. That's in Odessa. So he said, but what about when it's freezing, below 0 weather? So she just without blinking an eye, so that's what we do. We break the ice and we go to the mikveh. So he was so inspired how she just answered naturally, with apshitos, without making any big deal about it, just that's what we do, that's all, no problem. And then he said another story, there was a woman he met who had a baby, and the baby was born, I don't know, sometime in Tammuz or Of, and in those days it wasn't really possible to get a bris at 8 days because there weren't so many moelim. So this lady decided she had given birth. I don't remember exactly the details, but late, maybe Chodesh Elul, I'm not sure when, maybe a bit later. She decided she does not want that a Yom Kippur should pass and her child should not have a bris. So she took a train, either from Odessa or from Leningrad, I forgot, maybe this is also in Odessa, with her newborn baby. Wasn't actually newborn, it was after 8 days already. And she was not well. And she took a train all the way to Moscow to get the bris that the baby should be circumcised for Yom Kippur. Now, this was a hergish. You call this a hergish. It's a feeling. How could she stand before Hashem on Yom Kippur and her child is not circumcised? The Rebbe answered Rabbi Leibel Shapiro that he should be mefarsim, he should publicize these 2 stories to the Hige Bali Mesilas Nefesh, to the local Bali Mesilas Nefesh. In other words, the Rebbe was making it a shtickle, sarcastic remark. Mesilas Nefesh means Mesilas Haratzon, to give up your will. So in today's day and age, the Mesilas Nefesh, in the Frierdiker Rebbe Sichos, it's mentioned this concept of Chassidim, Amerikanski chokoladnikis, Americans who are into chocolate. So chas v'sholem, you can't drink Coca-Cola, you're going to have to drink Pepsi. Chas v'sholem, you're not going to have Tropicana orange juice, you might have to drink a lower brand, which is not as good. Oy, 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 that's the Mesilas Nefesh. Chas v'sholem, you're not going to have the sauce that you like the most. You're not going to have Tropicana. You're not going to have Heinz ketchup. You might have to use some other ketchup, which is a much lower level. So when we speak about our day and age, the year 2023, and we speak about Mesilas Nefesh, sometimes the Mesilas Nefesh of not looking where you're meant to be, to stop looking where you're meant to be, where you should stop looking. And you want to speak Lashon Hara and you're holding back from Lashon Hara, yes, it takes a lot of hard work and it is taka true Mesilas Nefesh. But still, compared to these stories of Mesiras Nefesh? Are we breaking the ice in sub-zero degrees weather? Are we taking a train, a full day's journey when we're sick, that our child should be circumcised and take a train the day back? All the more so if we compare ourselves to the days of the Friedrich Rebbe, where people are being interrogated by the KGB and tortured just to teach a kid Kometz Aleph Oh. So all this is what the Rebbe told Rabbi Shapiro. Zay mefarsim to the Higa Baalei Mesiras Nefesh. Tell these stories to the local Baalei Mesiras Nefesh, that they should realize that we should be inspired. Hashem should help. We should be standing in this warrior mode, in this Mesiras Nefesh mode, in the Pinchas mode, when at all times we should have an aspect of ourselves where we're ready to do and show, to give up or to push ourselves in such a way that will bring and be considered a level of Pella, and that merit, Yehovchu Yomel Sosnal Simchal Meidim Tevim, will be able to graduate from the 3 weeks, that these 3 weeks, days of mourning, should turn into Yomim Tevim itself, and through our Pella will be zeichel to Kimeitzeis Chemeres Mitzrayim, Arenu Floyes, taking my mamish, B'Teva Nirivan Nigla. Good Shabbos. Posting from my home, Bez Hashem Yisborach, your man in Melbourne.